by Gasol. Leaves it off. Kwame blows the dunk. Wow. Tied at 99. It's going back.
The NBA Draft. The night when the fate of many franchises changes forever. Only the future knows what the careers of the world's most promising young players will hold. However, on many occasions, teams make blunders that will change the fate of the franchise forever. In this video, we'll take a chronological look at some of the worst decisions GMs have made on draft night since 2000. And believe us when we tell you that some of those decisions cost them their jobs. Since the beginning of time in the NBA, there have been players who looked like they were going to dominate the world and have ended up crashing and burning.
His whole thing goes is Anthony's bad, he can't even get the dunk to go.
Not only in basketball, but in any sport. Expectations can't be withstood by everyone. The pressure of the fans on these players and poor starts to their NBA careers are capable of turning true basketball prodigies into shells of their former selves. Kwame Brown is just the first example from the 2000s. In the bizarre 2001 draft, the top 4 positions were used to draft big men: Kwame Brown, Tyson Chandler, Pau Gasol, and Eddie Curry. Brown's athletic abilities allowed him to be the Wizards' first pick ahead of 3 players who would end up having, at the least, much better careers. But Kwame never lived up to expectations. During his rookie season, he averaged 4.5 points and 3.5 rebounds on 39% shooting from the field, alarmingly low percentages for a center. Brown increased his efficiency as he gained NBA experience, but he never stopped being a role player who ended up going around the league as a journeyman. Kwame suited up for 7 different franchises, including the disastrous Lakers, where a prime Kobe Bryant averaged 35 points per game. And all of the franchises realized that the center was not a player capable of helping them win games. In fact, one of the most iconic moments of his career is when he was traded from the Lakers to get Pau Gasol, which led to one of the biggest rants of Stephen A. Smith's journalistic career.
This man was a bona fide scrub. He can't play!
The career of the player who came to the NBA right out of high school ended in 2013 with averages of 6.6 points and 5.5 rebounds per game in 22 minutes. But just a year after the disastrous day the Wizards drafted Kwame Brown, the Chicago Bulls made just as bad of a mistake. It involved Jay Williams, a player who even many diehard NBA fans may have forgotten. This player, who came through Duke University, was picked only behind Yao Ming during the 2002 draft night. And his rookie season, while not living up to expectations, wasn't all bad. In fact, Jay recorded a triple-double in his 75-game career. During the summer that separated his rookie season from his sophomore season, Williams was involved in a motorcycle accident in which he was not wearing a helmet. His body suffered an incredible amount of injuries, which resulted in the player never stepping on an NBA court again for the rest of his life. In addition, the player violated the Chicago franchise's policy that prevented players from riding motorcycles. Jay was cut just a year and a half after being picked second in the draft, and the Bulls obviously couldn't get anything in return. But the 2002 draft was far from one of the best ever, so Chicago's mistake wasn't all that disastrous. Mike Dunleavy, Drew Gooden, Nikola Shkidishvili, and Dwan Wagner were the picks right after Jay Williams. However, in the 2003 draft, the mistake the Detroit Pistons made probably still haunts Detroit fans to this date. On that warm June night, every fan and NBA scout knew that LeBron James was going to be the first pick of the draft. Well, he is the chosen one, right? But Detroit had the second pick and an incredible list of promising players available: Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, Carmelo Anthony, and Darko Milicic. The Pistons ended up taking the teen from Serbia, Darko Milicic. This turned out to be a total failure that scouts were raving about, and GM said they had not seen anything like him in private workouts. The Detroit Pistons, despite this mistake, won their coveted championship in the 2004 season, beating the Lakers in the finals, but if they had made the right decision, we'd probably be talking about a dynasty. Darko, a close friend of Nikola Jokic's older brothers, finished his NBA career with a disappointing 6 points and 4.2 rebounds in 18 minutes of play. We have to fast forward to the 2005 draft to see our next player on the list, and I'm sure this one will surprise you. This is Fran Vasquez, the 11th pick of the 2005 draft by the Orlando Magic. The Spanish center is a very unknown player to the American public, but he was one of the biggest promises of one of the basketball powerhouses of the moment, which was able to produce big men of great level like the Gasol brothers, Serge Ibaka, or Jorge Garbajosa. Rumors suggested that his girlfriend did not want to live in the United States, which caused the player to continually delay his arrival to the Florida franchise. The years continued to pass, and by the time Vasquez reached his 30s, most Magic fans knew they would probably never see him in the NBA. Fran Vasquez is a Spanish basketball legend, and the league's all-time leader in blocked shots. However, he was also one of the worst NBA draft picks of the last 20 years. Just 2 years after the Fran Vasquez draft, we come to the night of the 2007 draft. With the exception of LaMarcus Aldridge, the lottery picks in that draft were one of the worst draft classes in history. One of those picks, however, stands out among the rest. There was a player at Gonzaga University who was making history. His style of play, based on Larry Bird, was one of the best Division I sensations across the country. And his loss to UCLA in the NCAA title game is simply iconic.
Unbelievable! Are you kidding me? Adam Morrison, is this it for him?
Adam Morrison was picked 3rd overall in the 2006 draft by the Charlotte Bobcats, and confidence wasn't exactly an aspect Adam lacked. He averaged 11.8 points on 12.1 field goals per game in his rookie season, shooting 37% from the field and 33% on three-pointers. The sad fact is, those percentages would be the best he would enjoy in his career. A knee injury kept him away from the court during his sophomore year, and he never regained his college form. Morrison did end up winning 2 rings with Kobe Bryant and Pau Gasol's Lakers, both against the Boston Celtics. In 2010, with averages of 7.5 points and 20.4 minutes per game, Adam put an end to his NBA career to play in the Serbian League. Aside from LaMarcus Aldridge in the Adam Morrison draft, the Bobcats also had a chance to take Brandon Roy, who went to the Portland Trail Blazers instead at number 6. Despite having both Aldridge and Brandon Roy on their roster, the Oregon franchise would go on to draft 1st overall in the 2007 NBA draft. What happened next is common knowledge. Greg Oden was the favorite for all analysts and scouts after the center had an incredible season at Ohio State University, along with teammate Mike Conley Jr. However, Portland's selection of Oden was one of the biggest mistakes in NBA history. The player never managed to overcome the knee injuries he began to suffer at a young age, and his NBA career was cut short early on. The biggest problem with drafting Oden first was that the number 2 pick in the 2007 draft was none other than Kevin Durant. The Supersonics acquired the services of a player who would become one of the best scorers in the history of the league. Now, even if Durant was the better pick, 90% of GMs would have been wrong to make that decision, and the reason is simple.
To expect big things out of him. I say,
Greg Oden's hype was so great that after 3 seasons without playing due to injury, he signed with the Miami Heat of LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh. In a preseason game, the center got this dunk, and fans around the world started to imagine a healthy version of Oden that could still make a lot of noise in the league.
Very difficult with all those operations, and right there is what you see he can do inside. He is.
However, nothing could be further from the truth. These expectations vanished when the player began to realize that his body was not ready to withstand the burden of the NBA. But that thought of a dominant center is a recurring theme when looking for a franchise cornerstone in the draft. The next case occurred in 2009, when the Memphis Grizzlies selected Hasheem Thabeet with the number 2 pick in the draft. The 7'3" player became the tallest player in the league after Yao Ming retired. However, his NBA performance was not only disappointing, it was just terrible. The player lacked the speed and the talent necessary to be an average player in the NBA. Thabeet played only 224 games in the NBA, averaging 2.2 points and 2.7 rebounds in 10.5 minutes per game. This decision is made more terrible when you take into account the great crop that the 2009 draft produced. Stephen Curry, James Harden, or DeMar DeRozan, all capable of changing the course of a franchise, all were selected during the lottery picks of that draft. Every year after the draft lottery, the real luck of a franchise takes place, because despite the huge expenditures on scouts, private workouts, and analysts, no GM knows for sure that the player who looks like a basketball god will be able to translate his game to the NBA. Millions of factors play a part in this equation, in which the players have no real control over the situation. It's unfair that the players who get drafted behind you can change the way your name appears in the history books. But basketball has never been a fair sport. Only time can tell whether or not GMs made the right choice. So if you enjoyed this video, stay tuned for part 2, and even more draft busts in recent years.